Hello and welcome to another Cram Sesh episode of Push Your Glasses Up. I'm Mikey. Reena's back again, and we're going to talk about the Tim Burton Batman movies, Batman 89 and Batman Returns. In the lead up to The Flash, what with Michael Keaton coming back, we thought it was a good idea to do that. Hey, real quick, before we do that, though, please like the videos if you enjoy them. Subscribe to the channel. If you want to listen to these podcasts on audio-only formats, you can find it on podcast services everywhere. Now let's talk about some Batman. Well, it's technically one Batman. Hey, Reena.
Hi, Mikey. Welcome
back, as always.
I know, this time we're doing DC and not Marvel. It's like a whole new ball game for me.
Yeah. We have, the Flash coming up. Just scheduling wise, it didn't work out yet for us to do that episode. So we're going to do that sometime during this coming week. But in preparation for that, we wanted to go back, and because it has Michael Keaton as Batman in it, we wanted to go and watch the Tim Burton Batman movies. And so we did. And what's your history with the Tim Burton Batman movies? Because I know we have a Tim Burton history in general with both of us. So what is it specifically with Batman?
So Keaton is my Batman. However, I saw Batman Returns first, just from like order of up. This is like how that worked out for me, because those movies came out like
age-wise.
Age-wise, early 90s. Like that was by the time I was like going to the movies. Although watching Batman Returns back recently, why was I as a child taken to that movie? But anyway, that year, I believe it was Halloween 1993. 92 or 93. It would have been 92.
I think it was 92. Yeah.
It was 92. Because like the second part of the year, 93, I was in third grade. I'm just trying to figure that out. Anyway.
I go by Edward Scissorhands was 90 and then 2 years for Batman Returns. Yeah.
I was Catwoman for Halloween, and that was baby's first cosplay. And I also started taking karate. So
to be fair, in America, at least, around that time, everybody took karate. We had every superhero did like this half martial arts kind of kicks with what they did. There was the Ninja Turtles. There was the Power Rangers. There was like, this is post Karate Kid. This, it was Karate City. Karate Nation, really. For
me, like my two big influences were Jubilee from X-Men and Catwoman from Batman Returns. Like that is my my childhood in a nutshell right there.
And still adulthood.
But Keaton is my Batman. I have a fondness for these movies. At the same time, this is also around the time of Batman. The animated series wasn't too far off from this, with the whole kind of noir aspect. That was like the style of Batman at the time. It was
the style at the time.
It was not as cartoony as like OG Batman with Adam West, and it wasn't as like serious drama as it became with like Christian Bale and I'll call it the Nolan verse. But it found like some sort of middle ground.
Yeah.
Right. And that was like perfect for me. And then when you throw Tim Burton's layer on top of it, then like that's like, chef's kiss. Perfect for me. However, that all got mixed in with nostalgia, and like on the rewatch, I was like, wow, okay. The dialogue is
it's of its time. There are things that Batman does in these movies that are not acceptable as a man in a Batman or a human man. But yeah, I'm roughly the same place as you with growing up with these. Ninja Turtles was the first comic book movie I technically ever saw in theaters. I don't think of them as superheroes though. So Batman Returns is the first superhero movie that I saw in theaters. We owned I mean, 89, I was 3.5 when the first movie came out. So obviously I wasn't going to the first one. But we did have it on VHS. We were part of the enormous number of people who did buy that for VHS. So I, even though I didn't see it in theaters, I saw it pretty repeatedly as a kid, along with like even more inappropriate for children movies like RoboCop and stuff like that when I was, 4-ish. But yeah, I still love these movies. They are very much of their time. Like you can't deny that aspect of it. But similarly to you, I also preferred Batman Returns over the first one. I don't know if that changed for you.
Maybe like a little bit. I feel like the original Batman 1. I feel like it's almost like in my memory it was out of order because I saw it so long ago and I hadn't rewatched it.
Well, and you also saw the movies out of order technically, so you probably have that aspect to it too. Yeah, but the casting of those movies is incredible. Yeah, and it's also, I think the reason that I like the first movie is a solid, like, little bit campy, not as campy as Returns, and obviously not as campy as like Forever and Batman and Robin. But like the first movie has a little bit of camp factor to it because it is Tim Burton. But the interesting thing about this, and it's why I think that the first one is probably a better Batman movie, but I like Returns more because the success of the first movie is what allowed the studio to be like, you know what, Tim, do whatever you want. And then it became an actual Tim Burton movie after that. And that's why I enjoyed it more. Granted, if it was a modern Tim Burton movie, probably wouldn't be the case. He hasn't really hit the same way in the last 20 years. But yeah, I think because it has that like campy gothy flair, it supersedes the first movie like by a great deal. First movie, still great. Still whatever. I feel like I can always go back to Batman Returns, and Batman just feels a little more quaint because it's not as robust when it comes to like the set design is a lot more intense. The costuming is more intense. The like makeup, all that stuff. And even the performances, like sure, Jack goes nuts in the first movie, but like the stuff that Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer are doing, they are chewing the scenery in a way that I think Jack as the Joker is still just Jack as the Joker, as opposed to in Batman Returns, those are just the characters. Like I don't see like, especially with Danny DeVito, like I can't see his performance through the makeup. I'm just seeing the character. So it's just a lot more interesting to me in that way. To like fall back on and revisit a bunch of times, because it is the one that I still go back and I'll just watch that one willy-nilly without watching the first one ahead of time a bunch.
Well, it's also a Christmas movie.
This is also true.
I feel like the winter element it makes it extra special in a way. But you know what's funny? So Matthew and I were talking about these, and he saw the first Batman in theaters, right? And so he feels the opposite way, where he feels like Returns is too Tim Burton. And like,
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
He must be relieved that the Superman movie that he was supposed to do never got made then.
Right. Well, I mean, I've spent, last weekend in Metropolis, Illinois at Superman Celebration. So I've spoken a lot about Superman. But funny thing, I was at an auction where I got these Batman cards.
I did have them growing up.
I got the full set. Actually, someone tried to outbid me on them, and I got so mad he ended up giving them to me. He was like bidding on all the I only wanted some random stuff, and that's a whole other thing. The guy. So what's funny about those cards is you could just have gone and got a bunch of those cards at any random show at like an AmVets when we were teenagers. Because I remember like
alongside the early years of like the Johnny Cupcakes shirts and all that stuff, someone would just be selling boxes of old trading cards that they found that were just like the random movie trading cards that were like for some reason would get made.
Here, I'm gonna treat them like tarot cards. I'll see which one I pull. But the man sitting next to me when I got these cards started talking about how they really had to fight to get the movie made, and like there's a whole book about it, about how like getting the rights to like do it, and it was a whole thing. And when it finally came out,
that's why the symbol on his suit looks different in the first movie.
Ooh, okay. I got Savage Sneak Attack. Sorry, people listening to this, they can't see. That's my my Batman tarot card.
It's also reversed on the video, so the words are backwards too. But yeah, that's the difficulty in getting that first movie made was the whole reason why the symbol on Michael Keaton's bat suit has those two extra little tails on the bottom, and then it never got fixed once they were good to go because it was already produced. They couldn't like go back and make another suit for that. So yeah, it is a fascinating story to like actually go back and read up about how that movie was made.
Oh, I think the book about it is called The Boy Who Loved Batman, or The Man Who Loved Batman, I think is the name of the book that this guy recommended. Although Matthew does give me a hard time about yes-anding everybody in conversations I don't want to be in, that I somehow still find myself in all the time. It works on this podcast. That's why we have such a great podcast. But yeah, there was a lot of yes-anding as I was trying to pay attention to the auction, but I just couldn't help myself because we were talking about this movie.
Hey, sometimes you get caught up and sometimes you talk yourself into a situation you don't want to be in. Yeah, it's interesting because like I think that there's obviously good stuff in here, like in the first movie, that is just comic booky, whatever. Like, I think that's all good. It's just I just like the extra Burtonness of the next movie because it makes it its own thing more to me. And like, you know, the first movie has both movies have these problems, but like Bruce kind of like a little domestic abuse when he's getting in an argument with Vicky Vale. Like it's a little weird to look back on now. That stuff doesn't feel as intense in Returns to me because it's matched with Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, like where they're at each other, as opposed to Bruce shoving Vicky Vale to be like, hey, shut up for a second. Like that's the stuff that
seemed out of character because his Bruce was like generally pretty chill.
Yeah.
Like this version of Bruce Wayne isn't like the out there playboy. Like he's just like kind of like the silent billionaire.
It's a brooding psychopath. Yeah. Yeah, he's
not rolling in like Lamborghinis and like all of that stuff that we saw. Like,
it's always like a Rolls Royce, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like more classic,
old money,
understated. Yeah. So it was like, it seemed almost out of character with his like, you know, very 90s sweaters and the little glasses. Like he was dressed sometimes very George Costanza. And then, I don't know.
His extremely large suits.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that part was a little okay.
Part of the reason I also like the like more Tim Burton-y aspect of it is in the I say Tim Burton-y aspect, it is his set designers and stuff like that I'm actually talking about. But the first movie is all of these ridiculous, like Vicky's apartment. What is that set? Stunning apartment. Great New York apartment. Well, no, it doesn't even like.
Oh, sorry, Gotham City.
Yeah, it does.
Gotham City must be very inexpensive.
Well, it looks like it was put together for like a fashion like magazine. Like it doesn't look like a room that exists to me because like the art is like hotel artwork and like it's all very just. it pulls, that's the kind of thing that pulls me out, as opposed to in Tim Burton-y style, like the exaggerated artwork and the like crazy stripes and check kind of tile and stuff. That stuff just hits more for me in a way that like the first movie never got a personality because of that.
But Selena Kyle's apartment looked like your regular landlord special, like 3 inches of paint, tiny little dingy kitchen.
They made it actually like look like an aged, kind of like decrepit old apartment. And it fit for her lifestyle, the way that she was living, just like by herself, where she was just like, whatever, it's me and my cats. But like,
I mean, on that note, I do appreciate that like Vicky Vale was a photojournalist and she moved on from, you know, the pages of Vogue to being a hardcore, you know, on the front lines of the, what was it? Puerto Maltese, like, conflict. She was like Anderson Coopering it up out there.
and then going back to her beige apartment.
right. So I appreciated that.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I was gonna say she went from like, you know, photographing like, you know, in the middle of war to be like, now I know what will get me like what she said, like
the Pulitzer.
The Pulitzer.
Nobel.
I was like, why did my brain say that? I think she got the Pulitzer was taking a picture of Batman. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Is that really what the criteria is now? But okay, all right. You know, you do you. I don't know what the judging criteria is.
I do like I keep kind of going to the aesthetic things, but like I do think Batman Returns also just explores more with each character, to the point that like I guess I can just jump forward to there's a scene later on, which I think is my favorite scene in the whole, like, of the 2 movies. And it's the ballroom scene in Batman Returns, when they discover who each other is, Selena and Bruce. And there's just so much going on in that scene, just them in terms of like those two. Like there's a ton going on. But then like you look at everything else going on in that, and hey, the music is very funny in that scene. But it's like
Prince apparently wasn't available for the sequel.
Yeah. But like the theme of the party, everybody's dressed up in star signs pretty much. And so when you address that to like all of the stories of like why the star signs are what they are, like they basically boil back to tragedy and like ancient tragedy, like Greek or Roman, whatever.
Oh, you don't have to explain this to me. I'm a witch.
Oh, well, fine. No, but I have to talk to the audience a little bit. But
I follow.
And Selena, the way that she arrives, like Bruce isn't wearing a mask, right? He's just dressed as Bruce Wayne. But that is his mask, as the obvious analogy goes. But Selena shows up in a skull mask, which still fits into the star signs, because in a lot of text, Orion is actually the Grim Reaper because he carries a scythe instead of a sword. And so like it's this really layered, fascinating thing where I'm like, they're setting this whole set or this whole scene up to showcase that you're about to see the tragedy of them finding out who each other is and what's going to happen between the two of them. And I just think that it's so much more well thought out with that kind of stuff. And then you do have just a little bit more of like on the nose kind of monster movie stuff with Penguin, right? So it's like, that's like just fun stuff.
On the nose. I see what you did there.
On the big pointy nose. And then like he bit one off. Yes.
There are some moments that, to your point, are so layered and well thought out, and then others that just aren't. I think her whole arc, even down to as the story progresses, her costume is unraveling.
Yeah.
As mentally, she's also unraveling. I mean, if this had been, you know, maybe a few years later, she would have been a great Harley Quinn. I'm not sure if she was introduced in the animated series yet, but like she kind of had that vibe where she was like,
I don't
between two.
I don't think the animated series had even started when this movie came out. I think I think it started just after this movie.
Mm-hmm. But like, you know, as she's like, oh, you know, I hope I'm that person. I don't even know who I am anymore. And like the costume, like the stitching is progressively like coming out more and more and more. And like by that point, like she just is like ready to break. And then she finds out they figure out who each other is. And it was just like this big turning point.
Yeah,
right?
this was June, July, August. It was 3 months before the animated series started.
Mm-hmm. So like I just loved how it just kept going. Like in the scene, she's crying.
Yeah.
Right. She's not like, oh my God, like, you know, and when she goes, do we have to fight now?
It's so good. Like it's
so good.
It's the most real moment in this like cartoony soap opera like camp fest of this movie. It's a very like subtle thing between these two people, and it's like that's why I think this movie just does a better job with like what it's trying to do. Whereas like the first movie is good, but like Tim Burton wasn't either not comfortable pushing his like aesthetic onto stuff as much, or wasn't allowed to because it was still, you know, he
left Nightmare to go do Batman, didn't he?
Well, you mean Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah.
No, he was always producing that.
I thought
he wasn't. I don't think he was ever directing that.
He was trying to do both at the same time, and it like was not working out. And I wonder if like that because this is like his heyday. But another thing like that I loved was the contrast between Selena and Bruce when they're both going to the second tree lighting ceremony, mm-hmm. and they're trying to get out. Like first they're like both like, oh, I gotta go, Alfred, please make an excuse for me. But then he's going to all his bat suits in his Batcave. Everything is organized. He like has this down, and she's trying to change in the car like while she's driving, and like they're two. That's when you see their paths are like really diverging, even though
but
they're
identical.
Going to the same place.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's two lines in the road that are like they're parallel, and then they fork and then come back together. Yeah.
Also, I appreciated her fight choreography was also very well thought out, where she did more kicking than punching because she wouldn't really be able to like punch Batman, and that she used the butt of the whip as like kind of like a club instead of just always doing like whip things for like short range combat. I thought that was like very, very smart. But then there were like, honestly, you could have done a whole movie with Batman and Catwoman and had the Penguin be a minor character. Maybe this is controversial, but their whole story just had so much more depth, and his was very convoluted.
No. I just want to point out that you're saying maybe this is controversial to the thing that was the other than the black goo coming out of Penguin's mouth by parents who were upset about Happy Meals. That was the number one critique about this movie, was always there's too many villains in it. So mm-hmm. That's where that running critique comes from, is this movie. So I don't think it's a controversial take by any means.
He emerges. That's like the crash course of like the Penguin's plot is like he emerges from the sewers, and this like makeshift like I want to find who I am, because apparently I don't know, they don't have like newspapers, and he just like has to live there, even though he's like friends with a whole circus troupe, which I'm going to imagine like don't exclusively live in the sewers, but that's neither here nor there. But he's not actually trying to find his parents. He wants to get rid of the firstborn son.
But the first movie, the Joker already had purple and green cars ready to go. So this is the kind of thing we have to overlook.
I'm not even done yet. I'm not even like, this is just but to concoct this plan now, instead of capturing, I don't know, like the mayor, he finds a swarmy businessman in Christopher Walken's Max Shrek, and whose son Chip is trying to do a Walken impression, which is like a whole other thing. Anyway, but somehow this businessman is going to bring him in.
That actor who plays young Shrek, that's Zangief from the Street Fighter movie as well.
Oh,
Just a fun fact.
Makes sense. So, and then instead of being like, you're crazy, man who has black goo coming out of your mouth and who probably smelled very much like fish.
Well, the black goo was the end of the movie.
He always had like a little black dribble though.
That was his diseased gums.
So then he's like, you know what, sir? I have a great idea. I'm going to help you. This sounds fantastic. Not only that, but let's make you mayor. But like, let me not tell you about this plan to make you mayor. Let me have you just show up eating a raw fish. And like how everyone just kind of like ignores it is my favorite part. Like when he emerges from the sewers to give the baby back, everyone's like, oh man, he's a hero. Oh, it's so tragic about his parents. Like just ignoring that, like, he is like looks like a villain like, and
hey, you can't judge people on how they look.
But like no one questions it.
But here's the thing with that, I think that's honestly kind of realistic to the point of like that's literally media and how news is covered with like trying to make a villain into a hero. So like
they're like, oh, the Penguin Man is real and his parents were mean. We should vote for him for mayor. And it's him like saying
it's Puppet
thing.
Master stuff. It's Mac. It's the real villain of this movie is Max Schreck, who wanted to control Gotham.
Which, okay, by the way, who wanted to build a power plant that Selina discovers is going to suck power from Gotham. And that's it. That's the end of that. We start talking about the power plant.
It's that. I mean, they don't really have to go too far with that because it's explained in a very concise way that they're in a power surplus. He wants to take away power, so people have to give him more money to supply the power back to them. That's all that is. He's just a bad, like, evil businessman that wants to steal money from everybody. That's all we have to worry about. But that's the thing is I appreciate how like one note that is, because it allows us to actually invest in the very good stuff that's happening with Selina and Bruce, right? Because like at that point if you actually had to care about Christopher Walken's character, it's like then it's really too much stuff going on. But yeah, that's
true. The only other like criticism I have is that this movie was way too horny. Like maybe I was like in a different
what's wrong with you? Who have you become?
I don't know. Like it's like for Catwoman 100%. I am there, be as sexy as you want to be, but like all the comments from the Penguin were just gross, man. It's like
because he's a gross dude.
I know, but like I don't like gross dudes like
he's
that.
He's a bad guy.
I know he's a bad guy, but it was so awkward. Also because I love Danny DeVito. It just was like
Well, listen, this isn't him and Jack the Bear. He's playing a really grotesque person. And so like, yeah, I mean it makes sense that they would also make the like gross goop man also like a snidely like gropey perv because he's been living in the sewer on his own for so long that he's incelled himself. But yeah, it's just I have to hard didisagree with the fact that it's like
in the bed with Catwoman. I'm like, ew.
That's the point. It's the whole reason that they're doing that is to make you feel like that. So it's successful.
But like then I'm thinking, I saw this movie as a child and all of that was over my head. So like I missed all that. I was like,
yeah, so
I had no idea what they were talking about.
Until you yourself become horny, you don't see the horny.
I mean, I still see the horny with Catwoman for sure, but then I guess in my old age now I'm just like, ew, like that's or maybe too many creepy dudes have talked to me.
I don't know. No. I don't know what happened in the last few years, but like the pandemic made you a prude.
Right?
I don't know what happened. That is
I've always been vanilla. That just I don't know.
Whatever you say.
I don't know. It was just I don't know.
You are the one that coined the running joke on this show of the crystal dicks.
Oh my god. I forgot to tell you. So in the Superman Museum, going back to Superman, they had a giant doomsday like model, right, that like someone built for the museum. It was like huge. And I took a picture for you pointing at where a crystal dick would be, and I didn't send it to you yet because I am a bad friend.
On where it would be?
Well, he was wearing pants.
Classic problem.
Yeah. We want to assume it was under the pants. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know why the penguin just like bothered me. You know what it would be? Maybe after like 7 years on dating apps, I just am like, no.
I think you have this situation you need to overcome where you're trying to be like, I don't know why it bothered me so much. It's like, no, it's supposed to bother you. You need to accept that it's supposed to bother you and like lean into the fact that good. He's a bad guy. He's supposed to make me feel like that.
Okay, fine.
If Batman made you feel like that, then you would be 100% correct. That would be very weird. We don't need him being a creepy perv.
Yeah,
at least beyond what he and Catwoman were like matching each other on. When it's matched it's fine. When it's unmatched, not so good.
And even then, he was like still trying to like hold back, but she really stabbed him a few times, and she got thrown off of a lot of things. People falling to their death is like a theme in these movies as well.
I mean, that is the go-to superhero thing, because it's a lot of the time. Yeah, it's with her. They can write it off with the 9 lives thing that they did, but like Joker, this whole
she did follow a lot.
Specifically with this series of movies, I'll even go that much more specific. Joker. And then if you want to skip over Catwoman because she like is still alive, then you have Two-Face.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember. Maybe they skip over it with Batman and Robin.
No one falls to their death in that one?
I don't think so. But then if you skip forward to the Nolan trilogy, Ra's al Ghul, the train, that goes off of the track and crashes down. Joker technically gets captured. And then I think I've only seen Dark Knight Rises twice, so I can't be 100% sure on how those two go out off the top of my head. But yeah, but beyond Batman, it's there's a long history of like superhero movie villains going out that way, and I think it's because it's an easy write-off to be like, it's the Batman Begins thing of I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you thing, where it's you can write it off and easily enough as like, well, they didn't technically harm them in that way. I was like, all right.
That's like the first favorite.
Keaton kills a bunch of people in these movies, so like whatever. He does,
absolutely.
He blows somebody up with a cartoon bomb.
Oh my god, we were calling it Looney Tunes. We were like, oh, here comes Wesley.
It is. Get little thing, because you actually haven't seen The Flash yet. Get ready for some Looney Tunes.
Oh boy.
In things that they do as like just tonal references, in very specific literal references, happens a bunch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. I feel prepared. Okay, so that's number one, like the most like common cause of death in these films. Number two is some kind of electrical shock that then just melts your face. Whether it be a buzzer or a taser.
Yeah, that's true.
Went over so well in the first movie, we had to bring it back.
Yeah, the first movie, it is Jack Palance, the Curly from City Slickers. But I think that there are go-to things that just happen in these, because it is like you were saying, the Looney Tunes thing, and I think that is a huge influence on Tim Burton. So like, I'm sure that in the scripts they're just written as like, and then he's electrocuted or whatever, and then Tim Burton's like, aha, I could Daffy Duck the hell out of this now. And so it's one of those things where like, yeah, I don't think the first movie is full Tim Burton. It still has those moments that like come through that are like that. So
you said Daffy Duck, and all I started thinking about was the giant duckmobile.
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
Which is very, very Tim Burton.
When I just rewatched this leading up to The Flash, I was just like, man, like the production design on this movie is so good.
It is so good.
They built a working duck car. Like, and I did have that toy. That was the McDonald's toy that people were mad about, but yeah.
But like the cinematography, I would say, is better in Batman
Way
Return.
better.
Because there's so many scenes where you could just be like snap a picture and it would be perfect.
Well,
even when the bat symbol first comes up and he's in front of the fireplace, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like any of the stuff with like the zoo or like
I think a big part of that too is with scenes like that with the bat signal like just shining into his house. I think that is just stellar like camera work. Like that is just, they're more thoughtful about that stuff, but also the tech for like effects was much better in that 3-year span. I to this day think that the shot at the end, which they filmed like 2 weeks before the movie came out, with Catwoman like lifting her head up and seeing the bat signal, I think that is one of the best looking shots of like any superhero movie. And it's like, it comes down to the compositing. Like the compositing on that shot is unbelievable. Like it's clearly not a real Gotham behind her, but like it's just the way that she exists in that frame. It like makes no sense to think about when they made this movie for how good that looks.
And that is the last page of a comic book.
Yeah. That is a panel. That is a panel for sure. And like, I just think that this movie captures those many different things better than the first movie does, where it's like the first movie was trying to, maybe not Superman the movie, where it's like trying to make it this like, it's a movie. Even though like, I think that the Superman movie captures more of Superman in its theming and stuff than like the first Batman movie does. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm like, from like the script itself is whatever, like it's fine. Some of the dialogue is better than the rest of the movie or whatever, like the ballroom scene, but it's just, as far as a production goes, I think it has the right amount of like Tim Burton's fingerprints. It has the right amount of general style, because I don't think the first movie really has style at all.
I mean, a little bit, but you know what the first movie didn't have? 3 different types of penguins.
It's true.
You had real penguins. You had animatronic penguins, and I'm pretty sure that the penguins at the end were people in costumes.
Yes. You don't have to be pretty sure. It's true. But
and penguins with rockets on them. Oh my God, I love penguins so much.
And something that's always going to bug me about these two movies is that when they, when Tim Burton stepped away, when he was forced out after this movie, because parents who wanted to, get a toy in their Happy Meal for their kids. I keep using that example for the specific reason. When they were like, why is there black goo coming out of the penguin's mouth? Why is it so sexual? Blah, blah, blah. Like
that's scary if you were little.
Oh, I was just all in on it when I was I wasn't like upset by anything in this movie as a kid. I just loved it. But like the way that he was forced out, and then Schumacher came in, and to Schumacher's credit, he wanted to like do what he was going to do and whatever. I genuinely still like Batman Forever. I think Batman and Robin goes a little too far with its homaging the 60s Batman stuff, but
I don't know, release the Schumacher cut.
Yeah. Well, that's of Batman Forever, but yeah, the biggest thing that's like that the lineage of like you can say technically they're all the same Batman if you want to or whatever. But the thing that's always going to be upsetting to me is the fact that Billy D. Williams was recast for Tommy Lee Jones. And good for Billy D. Williams that he got a pay or play contract on that first movie. And so he still got paid, like whatever. But I love the idea of him as Harvey Dent. And at least we got the Batman 89 comic from Joe Quinones, that local boy Joe, Somerville's own. And so it explores that a little bit more, but like, man, can you imagine if Billy D. Williams was Two-Face in Batman Forever? How fucking cool that would be. God.
Yeah. And like, cause like it was set up, like that's the one bummer about these two films is there was a lot of setup that never got paid off because at the time they were going kind of movie by movie and they weren't kind of linking things in the way that they do with superhero movies now and cameos and Easter eggs and like all of that stuff wasn't happening. So you had Harvey Dent and we're like, oh, is this coming? And then no. And then Catwoman has one life left. See her at the end. Nothing after that. So it's kind of a lot of like, you know, queuing up things that never pay off. And that part, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. And it's weird kind of going back to these and then going into the Flash as well. This is not a spoiler for the Flash. This is known information about the Flash. It's not our 1989 Batman. This is an alternate universe Batman who is also Michael Keaton. So it's you'll notice he wears a lot of ascots in the Flash. So he's kind of,
good to know.
He's kind of like this amalgamation of like 89 and Adam West in a way, but like it's a little bit weird now because they sold it all on it's him coming back, but it's like it's not. It's a different Batman. You can look at it when you're watching the movie and it's enough of that Batman that you can be like, okay, it's fine, it's him. But like they sat down in an interview weeks ago and they were like, yeah, it's not actually the 1989 Batman. I'm like, why are you doing this? That ruins the one thing that we're like actually looking forward to about this movie.
And you had the same music cues. Yeah. Didn't they use like, okay.
Danny Elfman's music is in the new, and we didn't even talk about that, but like just these scores are crazy.
Well, Burton's having the time of his life. Here's Danny Elfman having the time of his life. Like there are lots of notes that like you can tell he had just done. I think, yeah, he had worked on Nightmare Before Christmas. These all kind of came out at like the same like few years.
Yeah, because when you talk about the music, there is specifically overlap because the music for Nightmare Before Christmas was written before that movie was made, as opposed to this was getting scored as the movie was finishing. So there's definitely crossover in these two movies with Nightmare and Batman Returns that like are
there's some
bonkers.
Parts where I can like sing Jack's lament over the score.
It's a little close, like a little too close sometimes. But yeah, it is. But like that's the best stuff that he ever did. So like I'm totally fine with it. I love the Spider-Man scores and stuff, but they don't hold a candle to this.
No complaints, just an observation.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything else about these movies that was sticking out to you before we go?
I think we kind of covered I think we kind of covered everything that I had to say about them, but it was nice to watch it. I mean, I know we kind of like skipped over Jack Nicholson's portrayal of the Joker, which I think was like the right note to hit for that movie. And we've seen, I feel like our Batmen have all been like pretty consistent. They've shifted tones, but like nothing's been so extreme. But when you talk about movie portrayals of the Joker, you're all kind of all over the place.
That's when the fights start. Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought that Jack Nicholson was, especially for the time period, was the right choice.
He did, like, he was just being like loud Jack, and that is absolute perfect thing for this production. Whereas like you couldn't put it's the whole sports argument of like Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Like they're playing different games. Like they are of different eras and they're in completely different style movies. Heath Ledger's Joker could not fit into 89 Batman, and Jack Nicholson could not fit into The Dark Knight. They're just completely different performances. But
it was clear that like Heath Ledger's version pulled from that one, but like in the reverse. Like when that joke, when 89 Joker wants to appear normal, he puts makeup on to cover, and then on the reverse, when Heath Ledger's Joker wants to blend in, he takes the makeup off. Like there was like, in the talking to yourself and the little like kind of running gags, like it could tell like the influence, and then he took it and ran with it. Yeah, and I think
Nolan also just liked homaging 89 because the scene with like driving directly at the Joker while he has the gun and he's shooting, come on, like that is that's just the end of this movie, except it's the Batwing flying in at Joker with a big gun. Like it's the same exact moment done differently as an homage. And I think, that's Nolan was good at separating while still putting a spotlight on what came before him with that. So, it's I don't know. It's weird to like, I have a letterboxd ranking on like all the different Batman movies and stuff.
Oh, we were just talking about this. What's your ranking?
I'm gonna have to find it. Hold on. I should have had this prepared.
Because I was trying to do it off the top of my head, and I still say for nostalgia reasons that I would put this. I put Batman Returns as like number 2, with The Dark Knight being number 1 for me. Not to be like a cliche, but like that was just a good movie. And also the Dark Knight's probably the Batman movie I've seen the most times, I think.
This is farther back than I thought it was going to be. There's Tim Burton. There's Chris Nolan. I have Batman somewhere near those, I swear. Batman. Here we go. I have The Batman as number 1.
Oh, really?
Yep. That I knew that before I was looking it up. Like everything else is where it kind of like gets jumbled. But
well, thank you for keeping me in suspense.
The Batman, Batman Returns, Dark Knight, and then Lego Batman.
Oh, I didn't even put Lego Batman in my list.
Lego Batman, one of the best. But I have so many of them. Like I have.
What's your least favorite? What's bottom of the list? Batman and Robin. What's the bottom of your list?
Batman v Superman.
Oh, I didn't even count that as a Batman movie.
He's the first name.
Well, I mean, that was a whole Jeopardy category at Superman Jeopardy at Celebration. I've been very skewed.
Batman and Robin is just above that, though. So it's a real close call on those. I think it depends on how I'm feeling that day. If I want to get edgy, I will prefer Batman v Superman. If I want to get campy, I will prefer Batman and Robin.
What about if you want to get nuts?
Then it's the first Batman. now technically the Flash, because he says it in that too.
Oh boy.
No, I will go through this whole list because it is like I have some weird ones in here that aren't.
Oh yeah. Let's go through your list.
So it's the Batman, Batman Returns, The Dark Knight, Lego Batman. Those ones I don't think are going to move unless the Batman 2, whatever they call it, ends up being like as good as the first one. I still like the word is that it's going to be Clayface in that, which is cool. But I think that they could do such a good job with Mr. Freeze that I wish they were doing that.
And I like Clayface from Harley Quinn, and now that's what I think of Clayface as speaking.
I think of Ron Perlman from the animated series. So, okay, so 5 is 89, 6 is Mask of the Phantasm. Then Batman Begins. Then Batman, is it versus or and? Batman versus the Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
Which it's pretty solid. I think the comic is better than the movie, but it's pretty solid. Dark Knight Rises, Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, Batman Forever, Batman 66,
Mhm.
As much as I love that, it's not good. And then the Batman serials, whatever, of like
Mhm.
Poison Parallel, or that. But I still put that above Batman and Robin, Batman v Superman. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
Batman Forever had potential. The casting of Jim Carrey at peak Jim Carrey could have been great, but then they put him in like a onesie.
in multiple onesies, many onesies.
many onesies.
Yeah, I do think I was thinking about revisiting that after watching these, and I do, because I do still like that movie. I still think that the Robin suit in that is one of the best superhero suits like ever. I think it looks so good. And people want to rag on Joel Schumacher's like, they put nipples on the bat suit or whatever. It's like, yeah, whatever. Get over it. The rest of it looks fucking great. Then like the Batman and Robin, the suits look bad again. But it is like, I genuinely think that the Robin suit and the Nightwing suit in Batman and Robin don't get the credit they deserve for how good they look. It's and they deserved better movies to be put with those suits. But yeah, that's my Batman list. It's a hodgepodge.
There were some surprising ones. You're right. I feel like I learned
well,
things today.
surprising because like, why would the Batman cereal from the 40s be in there? Like, yeah.
Oh no, that part is not surprising. Again, I'm dating the world's biggest Superman fan, so like I am hyper aware of all the things that exist now, like going all the way back between Batman and Superman, and there's a lot of material out there.
I won't say anything specific. He's going to have, he might be a little bit torn, but he's going to have some things that make him smile in the Flash.
Oh, you hear that, Matthew? I know you're going to listen to this. I think you're good. We're going to actually...
You're seeing that like as this movie comes out, so or as this episode comes out. So,
he'll already know by then, but he'll be happy that it was mentioned.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we will be back to talk about the Flash in a few days, whichever day I am able to make sure my computer is running at full steam to be able to render out a video. But yeah, we'll be back soon, and until next time, bye.